Welcome, everybody, to another podcast of Salty Chillers Entertainment. And tonight we'll be talking about, with Salt and with Rich here, we'll be talking about
Hello there.
just games in general, of course, more about how story and how content can change our replayability of the games and what makes us want to go and replay our games. So, starting us off, Rich will head off on the first couple points and with the discussion on story and how the mechanics of the game affect the replayability of a game.
And that is something, us gamers have to think about. My first point I want to hit on is actually the story. The story with me, it can sort of make or break a game, but it's not everything the game is sort of based around. Because I'm going to bring two examples I'll bring up. It's one, let's talk about Dark Souls 3. Overall, the story in Dark Souls 3, it's there, but it's not something you really play the game for. It's for the story. At least I didn't play Dark Souls 3 for the story. I can't speak for Hero or Salt about that.
I play it because for me it's entertaining. The mechanics and everything, I like it. It's challenging and it requires you to think a little before you just go out there, being stupid, because you will die fast.
Me personally, I like playing Dark Souls because it makes me have to learn how to play. I remember going through one map, Cathedral of the Deep, and I died more times than what I would care. And it made me learn, oh, right here, enemy pops up, and I learned where the enemy locations were at. Yeah, it was a pain that I was dying, but I enjoyed it because I actually was learning and knowing what to do and how to fight the enemies, as Salt was talking about.
And
So
the boss fights aren't necessarily something to really joke around with. I think there's probably, a couple bosses that I just downright did not like and actually quite infuriated me, mainly because I just kept dying over and over and over with very little progress.
yeah, and that's with Dark Souls. It's Dark Souls and Blood. The Sorcery games are not the easiest games to run around and get going with. The story-wise, those are the story can be. Bloodborne has an interesting story. Dark Souls, it's not really present that much. And that game comes down with game mechanics. Another games are games which the story is told through cutscenes. So you end up watching more like a movie than almost like a game. And that there comes down to your preference about the game. There's one game I played, for example, I sat and watched more cutscenes towards the tail end of the game than I was actually playing the game. And that was an interesting take. But I got to a point where I was more story driven than grinding and doing
Actual.
other stuff.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
playing a game, it's watching a movie.
And what's your take on that, Salt? About just sitting back and just sort of almost watching a movie than playing a game.
It's like you paid to play a game, not watch a movie.
So you don't
That was-
care much for that kind of stuff.
No. Like, I understand like cutscenes every now and then, but I'd rather have more, gameplay and things like that than, constant cinematic and cutscenes.
And
Every
that
now and then is
sometimes,
fine, but not constantly.
yeah, and sometimes that turns off a player. I paid good money for this, and there's 5 hours worth of cutscene. Now, granted, there are some legend games out there. Take the Kingdom Hearts series or Final Fantasy series, and yeah, you have a lot of cinematics in there, but it helps progress, or it's there to introduce. It's not there to show you everything. It's there to help you ask questions and want to dive deeper. And it doesn't feel as tedious because it's all these cut sequences spaced throughout their games and not jam packed in a single game.
And
Yeah.
this said game, I wouldn't mind mentioning the game, but at the same time I know it's a very good game, so I just want to keep the game more. For those who want to pick up the game later on, just anyways, this said game, it had about an hour and a half worth of cutscenes per chapter, which was about 10 chapters each. I loved the
Jesus.
game. I loved the game. The gameplay though was actually quite interesting. It was an auto attack game mechanics, so you had to auto attack. But you had to then wait to do your skills, and if you don't line your skills up just right, or don't have the right characters with the right skills, you end up dying 2 or 3 times fighting the enemies. But that game was more story driven, but it had a lot of grinding outside the story to do, so it was sort of balanced. If you didn't want to watch some cutscenes, you can then sit back and go and grind and do other stuff and run around doing side quests. And then you also, yeah, so like I said, I enjoyed the game, but the story drew me in, and I want to go back and play the game.
Alright, well, aside from... Oh, sorry, continue.
Go ahead, Saul.
No, continue, finish your thought.
And then you have the games where most of the story is told more in text boxes, you have to then read it. But that there then depends on the player. Because the original Zelda series, or watch most of the Zelda series, except for Breath of the Wild now, or introduced the cutscenes, all the plot and story you have to read text boxes, and then there's no voice acting. And that is an issue with Zelda stories, but all in all, the stories...
Well, you bring up an interesting point.
Gamers want to go back. Go ahead.
You bring up an interesting point. You look at gaming as it evolved. We've evolved from text boxes and reading the text boxes to now cinematics. Now there's pros and cons to both of those, and we can probably discuss that some other time, just for the sake of what we're talking about with how all of this affects our replayability of our games. But just the evolution of gaming has changed, where we've gone from text boxes to cinematic sequences.
Take Final Fantasy VII, for instance. There is a lot of text box. And then take the more current ones we have now, like 15, where it's kind of cinematic dialogue. Well, yeah.
Yes, it's more cinematic dialogue. You have them voice acting, but when you want to go to the next scene, you press the actual
essentially
whatever button you use to skip.
It's, yeah, pretty much.
To keep going. And it comes down to the player. But I remember reading one thing, oh yeah, more story equals more cutscenes. I don't want to sit and watch cutscenes with story, so some players, that's not what they're looking for.
No.
They're not wanting cutscenes for more story, they'll want something else. They don't mind reading text boxes instead of watching cutscenes.
Yeah.
And another thing though, that I want to touch on now, is game mechanics. Let's go back to Dark Souls. The reason why we went back to Dark Souls wasn't so much stories, there's more for the game mechanics, the challenges that they brought us. And how that brought us back, because it wasn't this easy game. We weren't going for the story, we were doing it more for the challenge. And the game mechanics can make or break a game. You could have, unless you're just playing pure story.
The thing is, the Soul series itself isn't really story driven, because it doesn't give you a set path. It just kind of throws you out there and you just go with it. Take Bloodborne, for instance. It literally does not tell you, hey, you should do this or you should do that. It just tells you, go kill some beasts.
Go kill stuff, and you can learn more about it from there.
Yeah, pretty much. And I also like to find it funny, with a lot of the things we kind of reference to, the Soul series itself is one that we always seem to link back to for some strange reason.
It's a game series that the three of us are all familiar with and we can all relate to, and it's a game series that a lot of gamers are aware of. They just choose not to touch it because they view it as a rage game, and you get, salty about it.
I've actually viewed it as a rage game. Yeah, I viewed it as a rage game, and I told myself I will never play it. But, Hero over here, gave me a little taste and let me play around with it for a minute, and actually, I fell in love with it. I don't know if it was the mechanics, if it was the challenge or what, but I thoroughly enjoyed it despite the fact I don't do well with rage games. Anyone that's played with me or been in a party with me understands I get very salty about
He lives
certain
up to his
things.
names.
I really do.
The reason why you came back to want to keep playing the game was because of the mechanics, the way the game felt.
Yeah, it felt good and it was challenging. If I could always limit myself to, only certain things, or I'd always push myself to try something a little bit different. And, that's just kind of how it was.
And it's the game mechanics with me that also helps breaks it. Because if you look at, I'm going to bring back up Zelda since that's a very classic iconic game that most people are familiar with. If you look at that game, you pick up Zelda game, you'll be thinking, I'm going to be solving puzzles and finding monsters. And stuff along that line. It's the way they built the game. So people know when they pick up another game, you'll be finding monsters, solving puzzles. There's only a set way to do stuff in the game until Breath of the Wild came out and changed that mechanic.
Yeah.
And they have games like open world like games like Skyrim, like the Elder Scrolls games.
Those are
Yeah.
different games and with their unique mechanics, but people go back to them because of the way and the environment of the game and how all that feels. And the mechanics, once again, they're fluid. It doesn't feel like you have to be smashing a button and creating a sequence of combos for things to work. Granted, yes, I know there's fighting games out there such as Dissidia or Injustice or Mortal Kombat where you have to know and line up those combos, and that works very well for some type of players, but it doesn't work for all players. And so you find the mechanics that suit you, that you enjoy,
Yeah.
that makes it fun.
Yes. There are many different ways to go about playing a game.
Though in terms of mechanics and things like that, let me just ask you this one question, Rich, and it's only because you're the only one that plays it. What about Monster Hunter? Yeah, it just came out, but the mechanics and everything like that, how does it feel?
It feels good. I was surprised because I played a couple Monster Hunter games before. It actually had more of a story. So I played Monster Hunter Freedom Night, and it was more of, you go kill monsters and you just grind for better equipment so you can actually get the better equipment so you can kill other monsters. So I didn't quite, I lost interest in that Monster Hunter, but I always kept going back for say. But it was enjoyable.
So
And now with
in,
Monster Hunter World, they added a story, which surprised me that I'm actually following more of a story instead of just go kill monsters since they don't read the story in the village. Same thing.
and so
And
how
the
does
fighting style felt smooth. It felt each weapon felt unique in its own ways.
yeah, that was the next question I was going to ask, is how does the game flow? Does it feel natural with what you're doing? I mean, I don't know the game very well if you use a gun or a bow, but if you're using your weapons, do they feel like it's a natural fit and it flows and you're not like screaming at it because it's not doing what you want it to do?
Or is it static?
It flows because I don't know all the different weapon types, but I know there's like at least 5, 6, 7 different weapon types. Probably about 10 to be more precise. You can choose from. Each have their own different feel. Their own different
And of course, most likely doing their own different thing, too.
Yes. The one I fell in love with was the switch axe. That's the weapon I started using. I'm thinking about switching it because it feels a little overpowered. But that's my thing, so I want to switch it so I'm not totally using an overpowered weapon.
You say overpowered now, that's because it's also, probably like what, early game still, where things, probably aren't as difficult to kill. Now, if we was to try it later, then things would probably be, a little more balanced out, just toward that weapon.
It could be. I just know I have a weapon that has about 400 power, and it can kill some of the smaller creatures in 2 or 3 hits with it. And I'm like, I don't remember Monster Hunter being this easy killing smaller creatures. But again, my past experience was I got this weapon, and my first couple missions were killing these smaller creatures, which took some time to do until I went later on. But the mechanics, like I said, feels nice. The system feels nice. The way they did it makes sense.
Okay, now just what's your other game where the mechanics feel clunky or they don't feel right, they don't flow, and it makes you where you don't want to go back because it's not that type of game for you?
I don't know if I quite. But I know I've played very specific games, but I'm trying to think of a game on top of my head that has it, and I can't think of one. There's games out that has it, but I'm trying to go through that. Has was a bad
did
game
you ever
again.
play the Burnout series, and did you ever feel like when you were playing, or just racing games, has there ever been one series or one game that you picked up where you felt like the mechanics were kind of clunky, like it was a chore to make your vehicle work the way you want it to work, or in the Burnout series drift a certain way? I mean, is it possible to have that type of clunkiness in a racing game?
I'd say yes, that is plausible in racing games to have that. To have very bad drifting or turning mechanics, but you gotta do the tuning just right. But I don't play a lot of racing games, so I don't know
Now,
if that is a possibility.
I would like to slightly interject on that one. I've played a lot of the Burnout games. One thing I've noticed, the Burnout games is they're more for kind of like aggressive driving. There is literally a specific game type called, actually I can't remember the name of the game type, but basically you are going around and you're literally taking down other racers. And there was a limit for bronze, silver, and gold and stuff like that, where you had to take down X amount of drivers in the process. I think there was also one game where you even had a damage bar to where no, actually I lied on that one. But the more you crashed and wrecked, the more your vehicle would get messed up, and therefore, making it a little bit harder to, drive. But the Burnout series, I want to say, is probably more for, like, the aggressive play, because you're, taking down other racers, and vice versa throughout the entire thing, as if to, just the normal, straight-up racing games, such as, the classic Need for Speed games, or, the Most Wanted, and things like that, where they're just a little bit different. Me, believe it or not, racing games were one of my favorite ones, but there have been some where the mechanics and just the overall feel with them just didn't really feel that well. And then there were some that, did it amazingly. But there wasn't one that was kind of, in between. With racing games being done by different people, it's really hard to find that one developer that does it, better than everyone else.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's same. I mean, my gaming experience has been limited over the years, but I know, there are games where they are clunky, and it does turn the players away, and the critics and the community are very vocal about that. And so, I guess just to sum up, and correct me, Rich, if I'm wrong, but if the story doesn't draw you in within a reasonable amount of time, each person is different. If it doesn't draw you in from the get-go, or it doesn't draw you in within the first couple missions, then it's no fun going back and trying to replay the story. Or if the mechanics feel kind of clunky, or everything just feels weird and unresponsive, then it's not worth going back and playing, because you spent most of your time either watching the gameplay, not watching the gameplay, but watching the story, or you just feel like it's not flowing well for you, and so it's like, I wasted your money for all
Needless
this.
to say.
Yeah, sort of feels more like a chore, let's say.
Now that will...
And that's when it comes down to the player thinking, is it something that I want to go back and keep playing after I beat the game, or am I going to just stop playing the game altogether?
Yeah, and I think that's all well and done. I mean, those are questions, and if anything during that segment that you agreed with or didn't agree with, feel free to let us know, and or if you have better examples, go ahead and give it to us, and let other players know in the comment sections, and get that discussion going about what your thoughts on, does a game have to have a good story? Does the game need to have a good mechanics? And discuss that. And that leads us to our next topic that Salt's going to be talking about, is the difference of multiplayer and single player content, and how that can affect the replayability of the game.
Alrighty, let me just start off by asking a question. Is it possible to have too much content or not enough content for single player or multiplayer games? And by that I mean, like, specifically just for mainly single player or specifically built for multiplayer?
As far as
I said that.
single player, I would say it is possible if you don't want to be a grinder. But on the
Possible what? Too much or too little content?
almost too much, because in some games, single players I think are more notable for this, you have all these side missions, side quests, these errands you can go and run, and all you want to do is do the main story, but you don't want to miss out on any other good items that may be there lying in secret in...
I say one of the best games for example is Skyrim.
Unfortunately, I cannot agree or disagree because I've probably played it for like 3 hours and that was about it.
I just know the main story isn't very long, but there's so many side quests, side things you can do in the game, that the game doesn't revolve around the main story, it revolves more around everything else you can do. You do the main story to get the cool dragon powers you can get, and then you just focus on doing the side quests.
And I do firmly
So it's
believe that
on.
single players
Sorry?
want to have that content in the game, so that way you go back and play, you keep playing. Now,
You don't. People go back and play it again for different builds.
yes, now for your multiplayer content, I don't know if it's possible to have too much, because everyone seems to fuss about how too little there is.
Take Destiny, for instance. Everyone complained that there wasn't enough content over the years, especially with Destiny 1. Now, at the end of Destiny 1, there was a lot of things to do. And here comes the start of Destiny 2. Now, I'm not bashing on the developers or anything like that, but there wasn't there was maybe half as much or less content in Destiny 2 at the start than there was in Destiny 1. A lot of players in the community hated that and, went back to Destiny 1 because there was actually things to do. Now, people, in my opinion, expect too much. They're like, oh, this game ended off with a whole bunch of content, and they expected Destiny 2 to follow suit with that much.
They got too hyped.
Yes.
And another good example, 2 years ago, there was a similar thing. EA and DICE were working on Star Wars Battlefront. They have the license for the Star Wars IP, and the fans were super excited. Yay, we're getting another Star Wars Battlefront game. They were anticipating Clone Wars era, original trilogy era, the sequel era. They were anticipating a whole bunch of things. A game released, 4 big maps at launch, 4 planets. Really? 4 lousy planets? Only 1 time era? And the fan base died. The DLCs barely kept it afloat. That game died fast because of the too little content.
Well,
I think we can go and discuss another time about hypes and how maybe the game was so overhyped that it probably destroyed the game. But again, that's probably something we can discuss inside.
yeah. There was one game I was wanting to discuss. Oh, in terms with having too much content, and we were talking about side quests. I particularly don't have a problem with that. There was one thing that I will say is the further you get into the game, the more kind of side quests and stuff become available instead of just throwing it all at you at once. It's like, hey, you've completed this, where it kind of, you know, opens up some more in that general, you know, line. Especially like if you use to beat the story, it opens up like a lot more side quests instead of, you know, having 5, 6, 7 different side quests going on, and you have like maybe one main mission. Um, I think that side quests and stuff like that need to slowly be unlocked in progression, but so much more becomes available after you beat the game. Instead of having so much of it throughout the game and then nothing really after you beat the main story.
Going back to the Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, moment you get out of the tutorial area, you can do the main story, or you can just start doing nothing but all the side quests that are in the game. Nothing unlocks through that story. Everything's available from the start.
And I think that was my problem. I mean, now I haven't played Skyrim, but another example is Neverwinter. I didn't know what was the main story campaign. I didn't know what was what because everything was just thrown at me. Here you go. Yes, I know Neverwinter's an MMO type game, but I've played other MMOs where you have a good solid grasp on where your content's at, who gives the quests, and where to go back and turn the quest. And I just felt very cluster messed. I mean, maybe need to go back and play it again and take the time to actually look at everything, but initially I just felt overwhelmed with all the stuff and like, how do I get to point A to point B, how do I follow things, and I just didn't know because there's so much happening.
Yeah, Diablo 3 did it well. I mean, you could actually be able to point out which one was, you know, the main story and stuff like that, but of course with them, they've actually sat and they did like the main story first, and then after that branched off with adventure mode, where you can do, you know, side quests and stuff like that, and be able to earn, you know, better loot once you get into adventure mode after beating the story. So it's not like, you know, you can't do the story.
Overpowered going into boss fight.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
you
and there's
still want to be
always,
overpowered, but not completely overpowered.
yeah, considering there's several different difficulties that it will challenge you. I don't think I've actually ever gotten myself past Torment 3 comfortably. I think I've tried Torment 4, and the smallest of enemies is like, okay, holy crap, you're tanky. I said no, so I took it back down to Torment 3 until I feel comfortable and strong enough I can progress forward. Like with that game,
Are in the game.
I believe there's 13.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous.
You don't
And I
hate
feel
your life
like with
that
that
much.
game, yeah. Yeah, I cherish my life a little bit, not to put myself through that.
And then here comes a question for you, Salt. Is that game also sort of multiplayer?
Well, it's, yes, but then you will be playing on whatever difficulty I'm playing on, whether you're ready for it or not. Which,
But
in terms... What's
ahead.
up?
But in turn, if I'm coming in and joining a 2 and 3, would I make the game easier? If I know what I'm doing.
Not... Actually, it's been quite a while since I've actually did co-op on there, because normally that's a game where I play by myself. Wow, it's actually been a good while since I actually played it, and even longer since I've done co-op, so I couldn't really give you a honest answer with that. Most games do scale the difficulty up with more people, but if it does, I don't think it actually affects that bad. If any, to be completely honest, 'cause I do remember killing some enemies hella fast when it was just me and a buddy of mine. So I don't think it actually scales difficulty any. I think the really thing that actually matters about that is just the overall difficulty you're playing on. Is what really affects the difficulty of the game, whether you're in co-op or you're by yourself. And in terms of content with that game, I feel like there is a good amount of content. There are a lot of different characters, a handful of characters, all of them different, that will challenge you in different ways because each one requires a specific way or plays differently compared to others. And so much gear and things you can unlock and different builds that you can actually use for that character. I think one of my favorite characters is the Necromancer. There are blood builds which cost your health in order to actually use your abilities, and there is a bone build which uses corpse and things like that to attack your enemies, both in which are viable, both of which are very powerful. Now there's also specific sets of gear that will enhance said abilities and make them even stronger, which in terms you have to grind for by doing the dungeons, and yes, it can be tedious, but in the end, it's, in my opinion, is worth it, and is, worth the grind, unlike a lot of other games where grinding for something just doesn't really seem too worth it. Again, I'm not going to bash on Destiny or anything, but it feels like the grinding for this game for certain things isn't satisfying. Now, in Destiny 1 it was, because things were a lot harder and it made you work for it, as of to now, it's kind of handed to you.
Yeah, just due to how they did their exotic quest lines, it's like, oh, okay.
And it's
Oh,
a simple quest
that.
line too.
Exotics don't feel exotic anymore. They feel more like something common.
Yeah, because as easy as they're handed to you, or just the, exotic perks and stuff like that, it just doesn't seem exotic, so to speak. Now, yeah, there was weapons like, Vex Mythoclast, Bad Juju, Icebreaker. Yeah, those weapons were truly exotic. Icebreaker, it was a sniper that reloaded ammo over time. You never had to pick it up. You always had ammo. Vex Mythoclast, it was a fully auto. It was a fusion rifle that acted like an auto rifle, but it only fired one beam at a time, and it did very high damage to people. But the recoil was so bad on it, it was, a chore to use. And Bad Juju, it was a fully auto weapon that reloaded on each kill, along with granting a short damage buff, which was a very useful, not damage buff, but it boosted your super, which means you could use it. And it truly felt exotic compared to a lot of the other weapons.
And wasn't also that one a full automatic pulse rifle?
It was. And that's what was great about it too, because you could just hold on the trigger and just constantly shoot. So when you're killing things like, small trash ads, you never have to reload because you're always killing them pretty quickly, especially if you're getting headshots. Getting slightly off topic on that one, in terms of content, some games like GTA 5, for instance, there is a good amount of content if you're playing just by yourself or if you're playing online. Playing single player, there is a good amount of side quests and things like that you don't have to do, and it also varies what you can do between one of the three main characters. The storyline is quite interesting. You can't just do the storyline going through on one character. You have to alternate between all three in order to actually progress the story. Playing online, there are a lot of things you can do between NPCs, now owning your own CEO office, owning a bunker and things like that. There's heists, which are difficult and pay out a lot of money, but also require teamwork from other players. And that's kind of one of those things that either you're helping someone or you're against someone. It's kind of one of those games that, or not one of those games, it's kind of one of those things that will entice your greed. If you want money, you will go out and kill people. If they're taking like a vehicle that someone wants or something like that, you can take it for yourself, or rob an armored truck and stop someone else from taking it and you taking the money instead. There's a lot of different things you can do online, and a lot of vehicles and stuff like that you can collect. So there's almost always something to do now in GTA 5 than what it was when it came out a couple years or so ago, where there wasn't a whole lot to do and you got very bored of it.
So what I'm understanding from you, Salt, is the more content you have in multiplayer games, the more likely you'll go back to keep playing it with your friends.
Yes, and I find for most multiplayer games, I find it more enjoyable to play with your friends than to play by yourself. For me, most of the time when I play Destiny, I prefer to play it with my friends because I have, I enjoy it better, and it's just a lot more enjoyable.
Well, it's also
Now there are
faster to
some
matchmaking into the matches because if you have a
it
team of 4 in
shorter
Destiny 2, you're just not looking for 4 randos or another team of 4 that are running.
and not 7 other players.
Or even just into strikes. I mean, there's the 3 of us here, and we can just load straight in, and we don't have to worry about anything. And we're all here, and we know what to do, and we can have that communication, and we can have those jokes, and just have straight up a good time all the way around.
Yeah, set challenges and things like that for each other. Now there is one game that I thoroughly enjoy playing by myself, mainly because I don't think I have any friends that actually has this game or plays it, and that's Titanfall 2. I love that game. I love to go and play the multiplayer a lot. It's fast, it's quick pace, and it's that's pretty much it. It's fast, quick pace, and compared to the first game, there's a lot more diversity in it than there was the first one. Things run smoother, and you're not limited to just certain things. There's actually a story in this one, which I thoroughly enjoyed. The first one, there pretty much was no story, and it was god awful to say the least, in my opinion. Nothing is overpowered in that game. You can't go around as a Titan and be indestructible because there are anti-Titan weapons, stuff like that, that can and will destroy a Titan if you are well hidden and can keep putting the pressure on them. It's like, yeah, you may be, just be like a normal person like, we are now, going up against a big Titan. It's not always a losing battle. Now, of course, if you're standing out in the open, yeah, you're gonna lose most of the time. It's a fairly balanced game. Now, in terms of probably content and stuff like that, yeah, there's not a whole lot, but with the diversity there is in the multiplayer, that's what keeps bringing me back, is more of the diversity that there is, let alone of the content. Like you would have with a lot of other games where they have like a whole bunch of content, but probably not as much diversity.
And so, kind of guess to sum up, because you've hit on a lot of good points, is, some games they have the content to keep you back, and some games it lacks the content. And so, wrap up, the content does affect how back and how frequent you go back to play. And if the game doesn't have that content, it doesn't matter how good the story is, it doesn't matter how well the mechanics are, you're not going to come back. Because the content's lacking, and once again, you spent the money on this game, and you want the developers to give you something that gives you something where you can easily sink in, 200 or plus hours in a game, because it's enjoyable, because there's a reason to go back, because the content's good, or they keep giving you more content and you don't know what to do with it, and so you're just like, alright, there's something else to do, there's something new I can challenge myself with.
And that's what I enjoy with, certain games over others, that I tend to go back to more than, some others.
Yeah, and then this kind of brings us to the topics that I'll be hitting up on, is mainly how there's the metas, and how that affects your replayability, and also just straight up being influenced by other players or YouTubers on how to play a game. Now, to help clarify for those who aren't sure about metas, I mean, it's just kind of thrown around a lot and you have to figure out. The metas are something that is pretty much almost a guarantee win every time you use it. You're guaranteed to be the most powerful person running around in the game if you're going with this type of loadout. There's a couple common metas that have been common in the Destiny franchise. Has been either sniper rifles in Trials, or scout rifles now in Destiny 2 in the Trials, and all of those have ruined the fun in those games, because if you're not
it takes out that diversity that you would like to have or see. it's always the same play style or the same thing you're going up against, and that's just not fun.
It's not fun whatsoever. Another common meta, I wouldn't say so much meta, but it was for a time in Star Wars Battlefront. So in Star Wars Battlefront, you had 3 star cards. It was your 3 items that you can use, and whenever you're in your matches. So you can either have yourself a jump pack, a grenade launcher, a grenade, a proximity mine, a personal shield, a explosive shot, you know, something charged and something that wasn't charged. And all of that, you know, someone came to the conclusion, a couple of people actually, like, hey, if I run around with this perk, which allows the cooldown of my star cards to be a lot faster, and then I run out this jump pack and this bowcaster. In bowcaster, if it's charged up all the way and it hit you, was a guaranteed kill shot, regardless of your health. If I run around with those 2 items, then I am guaranteed to kill everybody and put myself on top of the leaderboard. And going against people who are always jumping up in the air and coming down from above with their bowcaster, it wasn't fun. It was frankly annoying. And another meta that was used for a while was the DL-44. It was a powerful, supposed to be short-range pistol, but it was also fantastic long-range. And so if you played any close-quarter maps, you were guaranteed to come against someone who was using that gun, and it was frankly quite annoying. And it's like, how do I play? How do I get good? Do I sink down to their level and use that weapon when I get it? What do I do? Because you're not having fun, you're too busy getting owned. It's like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for. And then, you know, along with that, you got your YouTubers. The YouTubers are the ones that, and sometimes just playing against other players, if you don't follow YouTubers, they can influence you highly sometimes on how to play. And then the moment you start playing someone else's playstyle that's not yours, me personally, you lose what's fun. You're now just following someone else. And so, illustrating Star Wars Battlefront, the 2015 version, what I did, I refused to use those weapons. I'm like, oh, you're using that weapon. Here, let me get something else that's a lot better. Or, alright, you're running around with a personal shield. Personal shield squad shields in Star Wars Battlefront could stop all blaster bullets except for 2 ballistic type weapons. One was the cycler rifle and one was the shotgun. I don't remember the exact name right offhand, but it was a shotgun. And I loved running around with that because I can pull it out, hit you in close quarters, and it was a guaranteed kill. And the reason why I ran that build with the shotgun is in case I came across a bubble boy, as I like to call them whenever they use the personal shield, because you think you're safe, you think you're going to be able to do what you want to do, guess again, you're down. And if you have everyone using the same loadouts, it's not fun. Where's the diversity in gameplay? Where's the joy in the gameplay? It's not fun. It's annoying.
Sounds like your personal agenda is to prove those using them are wrong.
Oh, that's what I love to do. I love to find a counter and show other players that just because you're using the meta, I outplayed you here, here, and here. A good prime example.
Where's your meta now?
Yeah, where's your meta now? Prime example was in the city of Final Fantasy during the beta. People were like, hey, this guy is really good to use. Let me use him. And I'm like, no, I'm going to stick to my harder, tougher character and show you who's boss. And, you know, it felt great.
I know all about that one too well.
It felt great whenever we took the win and we're like, what happened to your meta? What happened to him? See, we won and we swept 1, 2, and 3. What are you going to do now? And so, the metas, the overpowered weapons, everyone's running with it, being influenced by other gamers or YouTubers can hurt.
And unfortunately, people will you know, it's like, oh, if a YouTuber says, oh, use this gun is really good, and, you know, shows it off, everyone else is like, oh, hey, maybe we should use this, and makes everyone else use it. People give in. It's like peer pressure. If one person do it, everyone else is going to do it, and eventually, you know, you're not
It's
going to
no
have
longer
anyone doing
special.
anything else. No. And that's typically
It's
how things get nerfed because of the high amount it's used compared to everything else.
And that's one
and then
thing
they
I've
would
paid.
complain that it got nerfed when it was supposed to be so powerful, and now it's not. And then people just keep using it, find a way to keep making it overpowered, and it becomes so hard to nerf. It's no longer good to use.
And that's one reason why I enjoy the Dark Souls, is because, yeah, when I come across someone PvP, okay, they're armed with this weapon. Alright, let me beat you with another weapon.
Yeah, there's typically counters to almost everything in that game.
And so,
Typically, one way to beat someone from range is to try to get in their face or, you know, have a ranged fight with them.
Which can be quite fun.
which can be,
And challenging.
I remember doing me and a group of friends, we decided, hey, let's all get into the PvP arena in Dark Souls, and let's just use only magic. Well, my spec in Dark Souls is magic. I purposely chose magic because everyone else loves going in close, or pyromancy. I'm like, no, I'm gonna be the magic guy. And when it came for that round for magic, no one could compete against me because they didn't know they didn't understand the length of the casting time. They didn't understand. Everyone knew how to dodge, but the casting time, which staffs to use. I was the one telling them, well, you want to use this staff, you want to use this staff, you want to use this staff, because these staffs are the best staffs to use, because it gives the best buff for the type of class spells that you're using. And that has nothing
Yeah.
to do with it being the meta or overpowered, is because, yeah, you can use any staff in Dark Souls to cast your magic, but if you're just casting general magic, late game you want the core sorcerer staff. If you're casting crystal magic, then you want to use the crystal sage staff. If you want to do dark magic, then you want the Isla staff, because those
That's
staff
because, you know,
works best for that type of magic. And it's not because it makes it overpowered, it just gives you that extra damage buff that you're looking for, and that's everything in Dark Souls.
oh yeah.
And so, in short, what I'm saying is the metas can make you not want to go back to the game until it gets fixed. Being influenced by other YouTubers or making the metas known will make you not want to go back and play it some more. And we want to go back and play the games. We want to enjoy what we've spent our well-earned money on. We don't want to have it just all go to waste because some other players are relying on those metas to get the wins.
And that's never fun.
And so
And
that wraps up about
sad
everything
when
that I
people-
have, unless you guys have some more questions.
No, not particularly.
I think overall, metas can ultimately destroy what the developers had in mind.
Easily.
Which then
Well, probably not.
it could destroy something that the developers thought would be something interesting to have, and then it's taken out of proportion. It's banned. Well, I'm thinking also of card games too. How a certain card gets invented as one person then takes the card to the extreme, and it becomes so common that they have to ban the card from tournaments.
Ah, good old card banning.
Yeah, and so
But upset.
look, I mean, things getting banned, things getting nerfed. I mean, that's common regardless. But when you discover something cool, sometimes it's best not to let the whole world know, because now you have a secret weapon that you can use, and then everyone else will begin to figure it out. And by that point, you're like, huh, all right, I found something better. Because you want to stay on top of the game. You don't want the whole world to know what's the best build. I mean, now you want to give tips and help other people out, especially if it's in a more single-player game. But when you're in a multiplayer game, everyone's trying to compete for that top spot. So don't give away all the secrets. And if someone does
Give
find a
them
secret,
useful
find another
tips
way to
that can
beat that secret. Rather, give the tips on, help the players on becoming a better player all the way around, and not giving them the most overpowered stuff to make them feel good.
Teach them how to counter it and help them get better overall, not, for that time being.
Because when I first found out that there's a shotgun weapon SAR card coming into the game that will penetrate personal shields and squad shields, I'm like, booyah, bring it on. I'm going to counter every single person. And not once did I have to worry about that weapon being nerfed. Because no one, hardly anybody, was using it a whole lot. And so because of that, I had my secret weapon to use against everyone who relied on a shield to keep them safe.
And that weapon was great too, to one-shot people.
Oh, it was fantastic. Oh, I hated it when they used it against me, but I had a complete respect for the people because they discovered it. There was no one there saying, oh yeah, use this weapon, it's great to counter this. I'm like, no. Figure it out, guys.
Be your own person. Don't let the world tell you how to play.
Because I remember once hearing a movie, and then I'll wrap it all up. Are you an alien or are you a robot? And what the person was getting at is the robot follows the crowd, the alien doesn't. And the three of us can all tell you that we aren't the robots. We do our own thing. We are the aliens. Yes, we give each other the tips. It's like, hey, this works. Or, hey, no, this doesn't work. Me personally, I don't care much for this, but you may enjoy it. And so we enjoy it.
Yep. Everybody knows I am the aggressive person in every game. It's like, oh yeah, this sword may be overpowered or something like this. I don't care. Give me something that's quick and hits fast. I will take that over anything else because I like aggressive playstyles. I like to be in your face.
And so to
No, we're talking
sum
about stuff along, this and that. I remember reading some when I first started playing the original Dark Souls. I was reading some of what started fast to pick. And fast as look, it doesn't matter what started fast to pick, in the end it doesn't matter. I want to recommend playing as a Pyromancer first playthrough, because you get storyline on the fireballs. When you get hard enemies, you don't know what to do. So this giving first time is a very useful advice. Saying Pyromancer are powerful, be great, but don't pick that as first class, please. You end up screwing yourself over later in the game.
And what does Rich do? He says, no, screw your advice. I'm going to do it my way. I remember reading up on the same thing.
And this is
They're
so
like,
pleasant first playthrough. Sounds like something I should do. I'm going to do it.
and I also remember reading up, sorcery's not a viable build. Don't waste your time in sorcery. Don't waste your time in dex. You know what I said? Screw you. I'll prove you guys wrong.
Right?
And so, in summary of everything, find out what keeps you coming back to the games. Whether it's the stories, whether it's the content, whether it's you finding a way to counter the metas, or letting the metas get the best of you. And if you ever have an instance where you found a way to counter a meta in any game, let us know. Or, you know, if you find games or know games where the mechanics of the games are clunky, especially in this day and age, let us know. If you find games where you agree, yeah, that had way too much content, or no, I don't think it's possible to have too much content, or nah, you're right, this game has way too little content, let us know. And if you like this type of topics and that, continue them. And as always, feel free to hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share, and let your friends know, because they may agree, they may disagree, and that's completely okay. Everyone is allowed to share their opinion, because we want to know what you guys are thinking.
Oh, and one more thing before we go. On Tuesday, with the release of the City of Final Fantasy, we will be doing a live stream, so feel free to come on in, come watch, or if you want to challenge any of us to a custom game, just let us know. We will be glad to hang out and have a match with you.
Yes, and so, as we're signing off for today, I don't know where my teammates are at, but that's okay. This is Hero.
Love it. This is Soul.
This is Rich.
Signing off.